Hello, everyone. Dr. Nick Kilverma here with another edition of Things I Didn't Learn in Med School. Sorry, it's been a couple weeks since the last post. I've been traveling, long needed vacation that went well and had a lot of fun, and then celebrating my birthday. So I decided this would be a good time to pop back on and give some advice and some thoughts that I've been having over the past week or so. As you can see by the title of this episode, talking really about my 2 year anniversary of my practice, which feels like it's flown by so fast that I can't even really believe it's been 2 years. But here we are, and practice continue to grow. I know there's going to still continuously be growth, but um, it's a good time to sit down and reflect and talk about what I've learned over the past 2 years, and that's really the whole point of what I want to speak to here. I have another colleague who started a job straight out of fellowship, and he is going into a private practice model now. And he's been asking me some advice, and I've been more than happy to help him out with that. And I was going to use some of the conversations that he and I had, but on top of that, I was going to add some other thoughts that I've just been having over the past few weeks. This will more than likely be a 2 episode, maybe even 3 episode series because there's just a lot to talk about. And I try to cap these under 30 minutes if I can. And that's just the way I want to go. So I think first and foremost, I want to say there's no order to these things. You don't need to watch them in series. You don't have to listen to everything, but mainly I'm just trying to give you the points that I've struggled with because I've been there, and I want you to accept it and move with it forward and not use waste money and time like I did. So that's the first thing, most important thing I want to talk about. Number two is undoubtedly this video will be outdated in, I'll just give an estimate of 5 to 7 years. It might be outdated before that, or it might be outdated after that. I don't know. But the concept is I was on a webinar last night of practice management and practice growth and independent practice. And some of the advice that I was hearing from someone who's already successful, has 16 plus practices, et cetera, the landscape of medicine has changed so much by the time he started and where we're at now that some of the things that he was saying was not as relevant as he thought, or it just changed completely. So that's something to think about. Not all of it will be outdated because I think what works well. So why would you change what works well? Um, McDonald's isn't going to change the Whopper. Or sorry, hilarious. Sorry, obviously that was a brain fart. They're not going to change the Big Mac, right? It's they've had it. They can continuously improve upon it in different ways and get better market research. But doing what's well and works well and doubling down on that is going to get you a lot further than trying to take on a bunch of avenues. And I'll definitely talk about that a little bit as I go forward. Um, and definitely, I understand. I know Burger King has the Whopper. I haven't had Burger King for a while, and I was just thinking of Whoppers this week, so maybe that's what came from, or I'm just justifying. Anyway, so the first thing I want to talk about is marketing. This is one of the biggest, hottest topics in healthcare right now. Companies want you to spend a lot of money, $1,000 a month, $10,000 a year, $12,000 a year, $20,000. It's a lot of money. What has worked the best for me and what the biggest return in value for me has been buying a box of cookies, getting coffee, driving over to a doctor's office, dropping them off, asking to speak with the office manager, asking that, hey, if the doctor has any free time, feel free to give them a call, give them my personal card. Meeting people, meeting physicians at events, at dinners, at society meetings in the area, doctor friends introducing other doctor friends, or playing golf. These have been the dollar for dollar biggest return in values. And think about this: if a company wants me to pump in $1,500 into their company for their services, plus another $500 to $600 on ads and services, why don't I just take that $2,000, $3,000 and double down on what I just explained? So you buy a bunch of cookies for these doctors. You go to these doctors' offices, hopefully get a lunch meeting or a dinner meeting or whatever, or invite them to come play golf. And now, not only did you save thousands of dollars because cookies don't cost that much, dinner doesn't cost that much monthly. Even if you just do this 2 3 doctors, they're going to send you patients, and those patients are now going to ROI to more patients. So these marketing schemes, and I really want to, I don't want to call them schemes. They work. I know Moxie is a great company and they work. They're not the kind of, I'm not their target audience. I work well with them, and that's why it just came to mind. Um, some of these other companies, they want to sell you a platform that they've proven to other companies, other practices, similar practices and stuff. But the idea, the truth is, markets are so different. Market to market is so different. A small town Ohio is going to be way different than the coast, or even different states that have different laws around how medicine is practiced. So don't get swooped up into these social media, advertising, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. Um, they may work, but it's just that money should be used in your practice to go out and get new patients in other ways. That can be as simple as getting flyers. That can be as simple as going to more events. Or just think about this: if I'm spending $2,000 or $3,000 and I'm not getting seeing the ROI of patients, then I'm losing. Then that's money out of my pocket. Now I have to work harder to recoup that money, and then so you're putting yourself behind. You don't have to stress as much. So I'm telling you, just don't waste too much money on these marketing schemes. $200, $500 a month, fine. But easy stuff works. Billboards, um, flyers, adding your name to a local magazine. Um, these things have been way better return of value, return investment than any of these other things for fractions of the cost. People are still reading the newspaper. People are still reading those magazines. So that's one big point. Um, the the big thing about marketing is there's just thousands of them, and everyone wants to say that they have the best and they can show you, and they want to use this KPI, key performance indicator, is a big word in the business world, and I've expressed what I think about KPIs before, and here's the reality: they cannot match the market to market value. They cannot take a perfect practice model that they have in Maryland and prove it to southern Mississippi. It's just not going to happen. There's different demographics there. There are different types of people there. Things respond differently. There's different. Even if you look at the landscape of America, different cities and different states and different age groups look at different social media accounts. If your goal is to be a super famous Instagrammer, TikToker, YouTube channelist, then that's a different market, and you may want to put more money and effort into those things. But you can learn how to do search engine optimization, SEO, by yourself. You can learn how to boost up your things by yourself, and you're going to save a lot of money in the long run doing it. A lot, thousands, thousands a month. So just keep that in mind. Once you get to that point where it doesn't make sense for you to put time into those other things, those low dollar value things, and you're ready to, hey, I have an extra $1,000 a month that I'm going to dedicate to marketing, and that's when you sit down with your books and see what you can allot to what. That's a different story. That's when you're ready to go from probably stage my practice is building to I want exponential growth year after year. Uh, Setting up meetings with like specialties, not only like specialties, but all the specialties. And it's easy for me to say in the pain world because we refer back and forth between a lot of spine surgeons and neurosurgeons and orthopedic spine surgeons. But there's nothing stopping me from going to talk to orthopedic surgeons because a lot of their patients are in pain and sometimes they need injections before their procedure, or sometimes they're not surgical candidates. Um, Even talking to general surgeons, a lot of them, my patient has this odd abdominal pain. Can you take a look? Or, then your name starts to spread based off of what kind of practice model you have and who you're helping out and how you are are working with individuals. Um, and to that point will be your online reputation, because that first thing that people look for is, does this doctor get good ratings? What are other patients saying about them? And there's a little bit of onus on us to ask our patients to, hey, do you mind writing this? Or even asking colleagues. And when I say ask a colleague, don't put a fake star rating if they don't feel comfortable. But if it's a colleague of yours, extend the gestures like 5 stars. I work with Dr. So and so. She's amazing. She really listens to me when I have questions, and we work so well together. I'm happy to refer all my patients to her. Just think how far that goes with that relationship of, wow, this doctor really cares about me and vice versa. But you have to be truthful about it. You can't be forcing it upon. You can't just go and heavily hit all the doctors and assume that they're going to read those, because sometimes they don't. But the best way to approach it is like, hey, do you mind if I do this? And or if you're going to ask them, hey, if you do this, please write something good. If you're not going to, please avoid that. Now, there's companies that will manage your search engine optimization, and some that will manage your online reputation. I think that might be worth the money. The Valley Health comes to mind, and that's who I use, and they do a good job. I wasted a lot of money, so I just want to run through some things I waste a lot of money. I don't want to negatively state them, because I don't want people to fall into the mindset that I'm talking crap about them. But there was one marketing company that built my website, this and that, and $800, $900 a month. Did not see a dime of return investment on that. Switched to another marketing company, which was $1,500 a month, and then they were another $500 to $600 for Facebook ads and Instagram ads and video production and all this stuff. I'm like, this is just ridiculous. I am not seeing the 3 to 5 patients that I need to justify any of this. And you know what ended up working out better for me? The patients that I had that had a good experience went to their friends and family and said, hey, you need to go see Central Sports Spine Solutions. You need to go see Dr. Verma. That goes so much further than all these other things. So that's the big point of marketing. Um, so that was a big thing about marketing. I'm going to move on to talk about some other topics that I was discussing with my colleague as they come up. He asked me, is it worth getting a phone line and getting that connected and all this stuff? I said, you could do that, but if you're just starting out, you can get away with just having a Google Voice. Get a new cell phone and get a Google Voice. Once you establish your own business as an LLC and then transfer to S corp and all that stuff, is now that the cell phone and monthly plan or Google Voice or whatever is kind of written off as a business expense, but that's a different conversation. But essentially, now you have a means of access of, hey, if the physician wants to call you, or office is calling you to set up a meeting, or even for patients, you can go through that and just save a lot of money on a really even an answering service, because you can call patients back as long as you have a detailed, hey, this is Dr. Verma's office. We're short staffed. Please excuse us while we're going through this transitions. I will get back to you as soon as I can, or someone from my team will. And if you have any questions, please leave a detailed message. Whatever, however you want to state it and word it. I mean, it will go a long way now that patients have access to you. Patients love when doctors answer their own phone and or call them back. I have a colleague who's a doctor who has all his MAs, all his staff call back, and I get it. He sees 400 patients a month plus. He's just going crazy, and then his MAs and his PAs are seeing or NPs are seeing another 300, 400 each. So I get it. He's super busy. He doesn't have time to answer phone, but the ones that he does call, I can hear in their voice, like, hey, it's great to hear from you and this and that. So it goes a long way. When the physician makes time for their patients and goes and talks there. Next thing to talk about is kind of assembling your team. Now, the meeting that I was on last night was kind of talking about assembling your team, who you need, and just talk about the basics. Like, yeah, you may need to you the biggest fill you need is someone who's kind of been there before, who knows what they're doing, or can help you walk through how to run a business. But even better if they know how to run a medical business, and even better if they know how to run a medical practice. So that first hire or that first person you want on your team is someone that's going to be highly invested in it, is willing to learn, and if they don't already know it, and the best would be if they have experience. If they've been an office manager before, you need to get them on board to help walk you through and walk each other through and learn. I'm very fortunate and grateful that my dad has opened up a few businesses, so I've used him for medical or business advice. Unfortunately, he's never opened a medical practice, so I need to find other mentors. I need to find other people that can help me with these topics. Um, and that goes to the next point that I see a lot of physicians out here that they've been practicing for 10, 15 years or even 5 years. Like, it's so interesting how confidently they say that they know everything, or they come off like this one way or the other, when ultimately, like, when you actually see it from the other side, it's like, yeah, that's a little bit of BS. I don't doubt that their practices are successful. I don't doubt that they're confident. I doubt that they know exactly how much they say and state their no, or this and that. So it's like a lottery pick. You know, you get a piece of advice, you use it, you don't use it. But there's no guarantee that any of this advice is actually good or bad. It's just advice. It's their experience. It's tailored to how they've practiced. It's tailored to their based off their experiences up to that point. So I'm not saying to ignore it. I'm not saying to accept it blindly. It's taking a grain of salt, and is this something that fits into my practice? Is this how I want to practice medicine, et cetera, et cetera. Um, and I guarantee none of them could be where they are if they did it just 100% by themselves, just hanging a shingle, as we call it. Um, People are saying it's impossible to do that anymore. And maybe it is. I don't know. I essentially did it. I'm not saying it was easy. I'm not. It isn't. Still isn't easy, but it's not impossible. Um, and it does take a lot of time, more time than you're probably willing to spend. And it takes a lot of money, more money than you'll be comfortable either taking out from the bank or asking from some sort of loan agency, however you might get it. And to be fair, most banks won't take a gamble on a freshly out of fellowship individual for a small business loan. You need to have some sort of collateral or some experience or have money in the bank. Assets that will show your worth just in case the business is to fail. So going back to the team, you need to have a good lawyer, someone that understands medical law and medical legal information, especially in the state that you live in. Having a good CPA, and that will be able to do your taxes in an efficient and appropriate way. A bookkeeper that's able to keep an eye on your spending and making sure that things are there's enough money coming in for the things that you're paying for, and it's not digging too much into the loan, or there's a plan to get that loan paid off. The plus or minus of a uh, wealth advisor, financial advisor, whatever you want to call it, because they will help guide you as well. And there's tons of great people out there that kind of bundle all these things up into a single package. Obviously, the more that you give away from your own control or someone you hire control, the more it's going to spend. You're going to spend. So that means if I don't want to mess with all this, I don't want to, I don't really care about bookkeeping. I don't care about the taxes. I don't care about this. I mean, obviously I care because I want my practice to be successful, but to do it without understanding it could cause problems down the road. But if you just want to say, you know what, I don't want to do any of it, then that's completely fine. You hire someone to do it. But that's money out of your pocket or the practice's pocket, and just gets tacked on the overhead. So you have to have a reasonable way to justify it. And there's a lot of people that will do it for a very fair nominal price. You can outsource a lot of this stuff too. Um, there's tons of options. So don't get discouraged if that's one of your deterrents. I have a colleague that stated, he didn't want to do HR. He didn't want to do um, timekeeping. He didn't want to do payroll. And I get it. That kind of stuff does get tough. So I don't outsource it in the sense of it's in India, but I don't have it in office. I have a team does it, and there's very cheap and reasonable, cheap in the cost sense, but not cheap in the quality sense of companies that do this online for tons of companies out there. So something else to consider there. Um, Getting a front desk and the MA, those are also very important things. You need someone to answer phones, and um, you need someone to that can understand and talk to patients, has a little bit more clinical knowledge. Those are very beneficial. Just keep your flow going. The MA will also be responsible for getting patients in, checking the vitals if that's what you need, getting a brief history from the patient, typing up part of the note if that's going to be beneficial for you. So all these things add up, and again, it's going to be more employees, more time, more into the overhead that you're going to have to deal with. And again, not trying to be discouraging about this. This is just some things I've been learning over the time, and my practice is still running pretty lean. I'm thankful that one of the companies that I do work with, who I'm happy to share with you guys, they do a lot of my back office stuff, office manager stuff that helps me take stuff off my plate. Anything that's day to day, I take care of my office. They also help with my prior authorizations and my billing. So obviously they want to be vested in my successful growth, because the better I do, the better that they do. So it's it's been a fun project to continue to work with them, and they're bringing on new ideas and all this stuff to make my life easier. Um, and that's the biggest thing is how can I time is our biggest asset, and all we have is time and money. And if I'm spending more time doing things, then I can't generate more money for the practice. And learning how to establish ways that your practice can make money without you is another great way to supplement that, but it's not the solution. um, Especially, once you start talking about partners and say your partner doesn't want to work as hard or whatever reason, these are good concepts to think about. um, and you want to have a sustainable practice, and you know with the end goal of having a successful practice. And I completely understand that, and I think that's why you're watching this and thinking about starting your own practice. Um, so those are big things on the team. So speaking of, prior authorizations are super important if you're in a specialty field. Even if you're not, sometimes the medications require prior authorizations, imaging requires prior authorizations, and if your imaging facility doesn't assist with prior authorizations, then it's stuck on you. It gets tough, and that's resources, that's time, and every insurance company is different. So it's not just a one-page thing. You might have to go back and edit notes or add in this certain detail that the insurance company wants. And this is, again, takes a lot of time, and finding ways to automate that and make it smoother. I know there's some companies that, and one that I work with, and that are trying to make this process easier. And again, I'm happy to share these individuals or these companies with you so you can start your own conversations. But this is what's been working for me over the past few months. And I'm finally at a place where I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm not nearly as successful, quote unquote, where I want to be. I'm not generating as much money to keep clear of my overhead in a comfortable way yet, but I'm getting there. At least my day to day is getting pretty routine. Knowing that if I can accomplish this in the amount of time I allow myself to work every day from 8 to 5, or say whatever it is on that day, and if I'm starting to become more efficient in those times, and if we can start squeezing in more patients and doing more procedures, then it's just going to help the bottom line increase. I think that's a very important way to look at it. Um, I briefly touched on the bank loan. I have some notes over here, so I'm like kind of walking through them. Um, yeah, the bank loan, it's a plus or minus. I think more often than not, you should at least talk to a loan, uh, especially someone that does medical office loans. They might even have connections for all these other things that you might need. So it's a good option. In my rough estimate, you may need about, I will say, just conservatively, $250,000 to get the office space, uh, any modifications you might need, furnish it out, fill up the supplies, get the staff, get the phone system. And this isn't, you don't have to spend all this right away, but this is just a rough conservative amount that you might need to spend over the next 6 months to a year to make your profit, make your uh, practice sustainable and floatable. And don't expect a return of investment. Don't expect to be positive in the black at that time frame. You will definitely be running in the red for many, 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 many months. So, with that point, I want to stop right there. Um, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This is obviously coming from a little bit different of a place, and as you can tell, I'm trying not to be so heated about things. And I'm definitely going to touch on that on my next video or maybe the video after that. I just realized I spent so much time on the first topic that we barely even scratched the surface on this list. But that's okay. I think even if this runs into 4 episodes, I think I have enough content to talk about. And I really hope this helps you and you share it to people and you allow this to grow your own practice and make you think about how and why and when you might want to do these things. And I'm not in the business of consulting or anything like that yet, but I'm hoping in the future I'll have some sort of time and or some sort of resources to show you guys how I did it for myself. But I am been and will continue to do giving free advice to my friends, my family, my colleagues, anyone that does reach out. So please reach out to me, leave me a comment, leave me a question in the comment section below, and talk to you soon. Take care.